In this video, my goal is to help you have an easier time selecting articles and ultimately make it much easier for you to write your literature review. So the big takeaways for this lesson are to not just research your exact topic, but look for overarching ideas and competing ideas. And we're going to do that by identifying some themes, and then we're going to take those themes and we're going to create a syllogism. Don't worry, we'll get there. Some of you probably remember it, and then that'll help us make the argument we're making in the literature review and organize all the articles we're finding. We're going to use 3 examples to go through this lesson. And so when I say overarching ideas, competing ideas, let's look at these examples and we'll see how we can put some flesh to them. So is there a relationship between some reading intervention scheme, doesn't matter what it is, and some student performance outcome? Is there a relationship between some professional development scheme, again, doesn't matter, and some teacher performance outcome, doesn't really matter? Is there a relationship between some school-wide program and some outcome? So those are the examples we'll use. Now, it's important to note that I purposely wrote some reading intervention scheme, some professional development scheme, because even though in each of your studies you're picking one, what you're really picking is some scheme among many, some program among many. So keep that in mind. You're picking one element out of this overarching idea. So like I noted, you're picking some intervention out of a bigger idea and some performance outcome out of some bigger idea, even though you're picking specific things. So if we looked at some possible heading types for this question, is there a relationship between some reading intervention scheme and some student performance outcome? We could look at reading performance generally. Why is reading important? What are different ways of measuring reading performance? So instead of looking for articles just about your reading intervention scheme, think about reading in general. Why is it important? What are different ways that people measure or assess that? So you can look for articles that are just related to that. Then you can also look for reading intervention schemes, not just yours. What are different approaches that people have taken? And then you're going to be making the case why the one you selected is best. And this is sort of how you do it here on the right. Reading comprehension has been shown to, and you would go into this litany of all these different research articles that you've found that show why reading comprehension is important. And then you're going to talk about some specific reading interventions. Kim and Smith used some method to do something, and they found that this intervention led to this. And similarly, Romano looked at this scheme and found that it led to this. However, the model suggested by Jackson best captures, and this is how you're setting up your argument. So whatever the scheme is that you're having, that you're recommending, after reviewing why reading comprehension is important, what others have found about it, you're going to suggest the one that you think is most important. And this will make a little bit better sense when we go into the syllogism. Before moving ahead to the syllogisms, let's go through these final 2 examples. So is there a relationship between some professional development scheme and some outcomes? So again, big idea, professional development, some professional development scheme, not just the one you're picking. So what do we know about teacher PD? What do we still need to know about it? What do we know about how teacher performance is measured? I mean, that's what professional development is getting at, right? We want teachers to do something better. And again, why is what you're suggesting better? And how do we put these ideas together, professional development and then teacher performance, to suggest that this intervention is the best? So again, you can take a look on the right here. Teachers are expected to, and then you would recast that literature that you found, are expected to do this, to do that, to do that. Professional development has been shown to improve their ability to do this and this and this through 4 studies. Using similar authors, Kim and Smith found that professional development leads to. Similarly, Romano looked at this and found that professional development leads to this. However effective as it is, Shaunson suggested more research is needed to understand how some element of professional development leads to some element of improved teacher performance. And that's what your study is getting at. Final example before we go to the syllogism. So is there a relationship between some school-wide program and some school-wide outcome? Now this one get a little more specific, school-wide, so we can talk about climate. So maybe the articles you're looking for are a general article about what factors make up school climate. And then when you read that article, there's 3 or 4 different things. Then you can find maybe 2 articles related to factor A, and 1 article related to B, and 2 articles related to factor C. So they're not all of what you're talking about. That's your specific intervention, but it's all these elements that go into this broader idea. And then, so again, what strategies have other people used? Does research show that have worked to improve school climate, and then tying that all together for why the one you're picking is best. So look on the right here. This should say, given that values, culture, and overall attitudes are shown to make the biggest difference in school climate, any effective intervention should address all 3. So you see how those were 3 different articles that were synthesized into one sentence, which are sort of making the case for this Anderson and Sanderin article that is going to propose an approach that actually includes all 3, which would be perhaps the approach you're suggesting. So hopefully you can see how we're taking these big ideas, we're kind of breaking them down and finding different elements, different strands that feed into them, and then we're tying together these big headings to make the case for our own ideas. So hopefully it'll make sense if it started to gel a little bit. Hopefully it'll come together here. So what's a syllogism? This is just a logical way of argumentation. So it starts built on premises and a conclusion. And the conclusion flows from the premises, which is to say, if premise 1 is true and premise 2 is true, then the conclusion has to be true. So the example is, all people are mortal. Patrick is a person, so Patrick is mortal. Because all people are mortal, because I am one of those people, then it naturally flows that I am mortal. So you are not necessarily making the case for the conclusion per se, you're making the case for your premises. Let's see what that looks like. So in reading intervention and student performance, just look on the right of the syllogism. So reading comprehension leads to academic success. So you're going to need to make the case for that with 2 or 3 articles. Effective reading interventions must include elements X, Y, and Z. Again, you're finding some research that is related to each of those elements. Again, you don't have to find research that's related to all 3 of those elements together. But if you find an article on X, an article on Y, and Z, then you've made premise 2. Effective reading interventions must include X, Y, and Z. So the conclusion is that using a reading intervention that includes X, Y, and Z will lead to academic success. Again, reading interventions will improve reading comprehension. Reading interventions must include X, Y, and Z. So reading interventions with X, Y, and Z will improve academic success. And just looking at the right here, professional development improves teacher performance. So you're finding articles that look at professional development, and specifically that in some way, not your way in particular, but in some way professional development improves teacher performance. Again, similar to the last example, teacher performance is evidenced by their ability, sorry, it's that typo, to X, Y, and Z. So you're going to find a couple articles that say teacher performance is shown when teachers are able to X, that's an article. When teachers are able to Y, that's an article. When teachers are able to Z, that's an article. So a professional development scheme that helps teachers do X, Y, and Z will improve teacher performance. Again, professional development is going to improve teacher performance. So some manner of teachers developing will make them better. Teacher performance itself, we know, is clear when teachers are able to X, Y, and Z. So professional development needs to do X, Y, and Z so that teachers can improve their performance. Last example, again, just on the right here. Better school climate leads to improved student performance. So you're making the case, you're finding articles about school climate, and you're finding other articles that say that improved climate leads to improved student performance or student outcomes, whatever it is. You're finding articles that say factors A, B, and C are the ones that inform school climate. So an article about factor A, 2 articles about factor B, an article about factor C and how they inform school climate. And then, obviously, the case comes together as, so schools should use a program that uses A, B, and C because it'll improve school climate, which we know why that's important, because it improves student performance. So better climate, better performance. A better climate is based on A, B, and C. So we need to find articles about school climate, about why it makes a difference to students, and then what factors go into the school climate. So that gives you an idea of all the different types of articles you can look for. So we're going to practice our syllogisms in the discussion, and as you're branching out into your research, think about the different headings you have, think about the big ideas that you're looking for, think about maybe the different ways people have approached them, think about different factors maybe that are included in improving that or supporting that, and right there you maybe have 10 different articles, not just about your topic, 10 different articles that all feed into your overall research.